you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mercado. Good evening and congratulations, class of 2012. I'd like to thank the Jamesburg Board of Education for inviting me to speak to you tonight. I'm honored to have had the opportunity to serve with such good men and women and to work with such an outstanding staff of administrators, teachers, and support staff here in Jamesburg. Tonight marks the end of a journey and the beginning of a new one. You're probably a bundle of different emotions right now: excitement, anticipation, relief, nervousness, and fear being among them. Believe me when I tell you, your parents are feeling the exact same emotions right now. As parents, we only want what's best for you, and as you begin to spread your wings, we can only hope that we've taught you well and that you'll be the best that you can be. You may not always understand why we do the things we do, and I'm sure you've told yourself 1,000 times that when you have kids, you'll do things differently. Your kids won't have a curfew. If they don't want to do their homework, they don't have to, and they can put whatever they want on Facebook. And you know what? Perhaps to some degree, you will do things differently. We're not perfect, but we love you and have always done our best to teach you and nurture you and prepare you for the challenges you'll face. When I was very young, I would often accompany my dad when he would go to visit the elderly or those who needed help and do odds and ends or mow their lawn for them. I didn't usually do much, but he would task me with small jobs so that I would learn the value of helping others. On one such excursion, we were visiting an elderly woman. I don't remember what we helped her with, but I'm sure she was appreciative because she offered to make us lunch. I couldn't have been more than 5 years old, and I just remember sitting on her back porch that was enclosed and sitting at the picnic table. I was starving as I had just completed a very important job, I'm sure. She brought out 2 plates with a sandwich on each and a glass of milk for each of us, and it looked really good. As I was about to take my first bite, my dad suddenly grabbed it from me. He ate it, then grabbed the other half and quickly ate that, and then drank my milk. I couldn't believe what was happening, but I knew better than to say anything in front of a stranger. So I just sat there wondering how he could be so cruel. I was starving, and he just ate my lunch. The woman saw that my sandwich was gone and assumed I had eaten it and offered me another one. My dad thanked her for the offer and told her I was full. That memory stayed with me for a long time, but I never quite understood why he did that. And I'm sure he explained why later. But I was 5, and all I could think about was the fact that he let his hard-working son starve while he ate like a king. It wasn't until a few years ago that I brought it up to him and asked him if he remembered. Surprisingly, he did. I asked him why he ate my lunch and left me to watch him while he ate his. He explained that when the woman brought out the sandwiches and milk, he quickly noticed that the bread was moldy and the milk was sour. Not wanting me to get sick and not wanting to embarrass the woman, he ate my sandwich when she wasn't looking. Then drank my milk and did the same with his. He was protecting me while at the same time protecting her dignity. Sometimes we don't know exactly why things happen the way they do. What can seem like a tragedy at the time may actually be a gift. If we complain about what we don't have or what was taken from us, we miss on what we do have and what we've been given. There will be many challenges that you'll face in your lifetime, most not as insurmountable as they may seem at the time you're facing them. We've all faced those mountains, and we've all felt that our world was crumbling around us. But when we took a step back and we saw that the world in fact wasn't falling apart, it was the natural removal of the old to make way for the new. There are mountains and there are stones. If you're always looking and worrying about the mountain, you'll stumble on the stones. My wife and I grew up camping with our families. I like to tell stories. It was only natural that we would want to share that experience with our children. So several years ago, we decided that our family vacation would be to a little campground in upstate New York. We'd stay there for a few days, and then we traveled back down to New Jersey and stay there for a few days. We had just bought a used minivan and a used Coleman pop-up camper, and were anxious to share our camping experience with our kids. And we chose the first week in July so we could get that extra day in on the 4th. We set out on Friday night and headed north with all the kids and a dog in tow. And it was 4 hours before we got there. And the van was giving us a little trouble as we climbed the mountain to the campground, but we made it. The kids enjoyed it for the most part, but there were no computers and no televisions, and this was before cell phones. So there was some getting used to. We made up scavenger hunts and played games and sat around the campfire, and it was a pretty good start to the vacation, but the kids weren't feeling the excitement yet as we had hoped for. After a few days, we left to go to the next campground. It was the 4th of July, and it was hot. It had to be over 100 degrees that day. We got about 10 miles down the highway and the van decided to overheat. Great. This wasn't turning out to be the storybook vacation that I had in mind. The van needed water, so I pulled off the highway and parked in front of a funeral home. I went in the funeral home to see if they would let me fill a gallon jug with water. When I walked in, there was an elderly woman in a casket. I guess they were getting her ready for her final appearance. I walked past and found a nice man who led me to the sink for water. When I went back outside, I mentioned that there was a dead old lady in a casket. Well, wouldn't you know, each of the 4 kids insisted that they go in and see for themselves. So one by one, I made the trip with a different kid in tow each time. They giggled nervously as they were brought back outside, and I could hear them whispering to each other. We got back on the road a little while later and didn't get more than a few miles before the van overheated again. This time I was able to pull into a truck stop. I knew this wasn't going to work out as planned, and I was so disappointed that our vacation was ruined. I had so wanted them to share our love for camping and enjoy themselves and make it a good experience. I used the phone inside and called AAA, and they informed me that it was going to be a while. It was a holiday, and due to the heat, there were several people in front of us that needed to be towed. Great. Now we're stuck in a hot parking lot for who knows how long with no place to go, and the kids are going to hate us. I unhitched the pop-up, parked it away from everyone else, and secured it with a lock. I went back to the family and discovered that Brandon was missing. Nobody had seen him, and we each assumed that he was with the other. We were frantically screaming his name and running around looking for him. Now you have to realize Brandon was probably 9 or 10 at the time, and he's slickered and fly guts on a wagon wheel. He's smooth. I decided to check the store, and lo and behold, I found him sitting at the diner drinking lemonade. We're all out there sweating, and here he is chatting away with the waitress like he'd known her from previous travels. He had sweet-talked her, and there she was giving him free lemonade. Now my kids were panhandling. This was not the vacation I had in mind. I was pretty disgusted. After 3 hours in the heat, the flatbed arrived, but there was a problem. There were 7 of us and no room in the cab for all of us. So we all piled in the van that was now on a flatbed and rode down the highway in the dark, feeling helpless. This was a disaster. The driver pulled up a driveway to a house. We didn't know where he was taking us, but it turned out that it was his house, and he had called ahead to his wife to have juice ready for the kids. They all drank their juice and thanked him, and then he took us to a motel where his wife had already made reservations. He dropped us off and told us that he would call us the next day regarding the repairs. The first thing we see when we check in, a big sign, "No dogs allowed." What more could possibly go wrong? We snuck the dog in the motel, closed the curtain so no one would see him, and tried to sleep. Now we were lawbreakers, and my children were accomplices. The next morning, we snuck the dog out to go for a walk and tried to figure out what to do all day now that we didn't have any transportation. We walked down to a little dollar store, and the kids brought those little fireworks that you can't get in New Jersey, had fun with them for a while, went to a diner, walked around the little town some more. We actually walked around this little town several times, each time as uneventful as the next. This was without a doubt the worst vacation ever. A little while later, we got the call, the van was fixed, and he'd pick us up in an hour and be on our way. Sure enough, it was working great, and we finally made it to the next campground a day late. We had missed the 4th of July festivities and tried to make the best of the remaining time we had on vacation. But by now, my wife and I were very disappointed and chalked the whole trip up as a loss. Do you know that to this day, every time we get together with our now grown children, that vacation is brought up as the most memorable and exciting vacation they ever had. They recall every detail, and to hear them talk about it, it makes it one of the most exciting and memorable vacations we all ever had. It's all about perspective. We saw it going one way, yet the kids saw it going another way. To them, it wasn't about preconceived notions in their minds. It was about what had transpired, and to them, it was just awesome. If we plan everything to be precise and exact, we may be disappointed. But if we take what we're given and enjoy what we have, then we'll never be disappointed. A favorite quote of mine is, "A bend in the road is not the end of the road unless we fail to make the turn." Jamesburg is a small community of around 6,000 people and less than a square mile in size. But I've always said that what we lack in size, we make up for in our people and our community. We're very fortunate to have caring leaders, neighbors, teachers, and role models who care about you and will always be here for you. I want to congratulate you once again for tonight's achievement. You're moving on to new and exciting things, and we're so very proud of you. You'll always face difficult situations in your life, but you'll get through them. You're not alone. You're from Jamesburg. You'll never be alone. Thank you.